Let the movie begin.
The Ninja Turtles have been eating pizza and kicking shell for 40 years now, and they're still going strong. There's an era of the Turtles for every generation, but my intro to them as a kid was when I caught TV reruns of the 2003 cartoon along with ripped episodes people put on YouTube. Back in the good old days when companies said the internet was that. As a child raised off of Marvel and DC's superhero soup, the comic booky style and vibe of the show really got me hooked, to the point where I think this series is one of the best comic book adaptations that I've ever seen. The TMNT were created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird in 1984 under their company Mirage Comics. It started out as an indie parody of dark 80s comics tropes with stuff like the black and white art scene and popular books like Frank Miller's Daredevil. Oh yeah, Daredevil totally made the Ninja Turtles and nobody talks about it enough, and we need a crossover, damn it! People don't really talk about the comics beyond mentioning it's where the Turtles came from and that it's super dark. But if you actually read them, you'll see it's not all edginess and violence. It's actually pretty cool and fun. The Turtles have their unique personalities. They're not all just the angry one. The art is really great, especially when Eastman and Laird are working hand in hand. And it's got a scope that explores almost every level of fantasy and fiction you can think of. It's awesome! And I think people need to acknowledge that instead of just the 10-second Google search making them look like they're darker than Spawn. When the Turtles finally got adapted into the massive success that was the 80s cartoon, most people got introduced to a very campy and lighthearted take on the Turtles that strayed heavily from its roots. I like the 80s show, but I can see how Eastman and Laird would have some resentment for it when almost all of their work was ignored. However, in the 2000s, Peter Laird became involved in spearheading a new Turtle show on 4Kids, the channel that made mistranslated dubs your favorite anime and Sonic X. The goal of this show was to follow the original comics more closely, but also make things new for the audience to enjoy. Thus, the 2003 TMNT show was born. I really love the way this show looks. New York is colorful, full of people on the street, and every location the show has is memorable and unique. The Turtles look great too. It's cool whenever creators try to make each turtle look unique physically, but all four of them having the same silhouette is too iconic for me. I'm glad though that they kept the colored headbands from the 80s show instead of the comics as all red, as well as giving each turtle different skin shades to make them visually stand out from one another. The series follows the four mutated Koopa Troopas trained by their rat father / Master Splinter in the ways of ninjutsu to protect themselves from the outside world. The show starts with them being forced to come out of the sewers to meet threats on the surface. And I like that opening since it gives the audience the same perspective as the Turtles entering this new world. Along the way, they face enemies like the Purple Dragon Street Gang, the Shredder and his Foot Clan, and many more villains on every level of the bad guy ladder. But they also make friends and allies wherever they go, like April O'Neil and the vigilante Casey Jones. Aside from Shredder and maybe Krang like the 80s show, most TMNT incarnations don't really go as in-depth in having the Turtles fight anything other than more mutants every week with their own gimmicks. But in this show, the Turtles take on street-level crime, underground monsters, go on space adventures, deal with time travel, alternate universes, magic, demons, tech viruses, and even team up with your regular old superheroes fighting straight-up supervillains. On paper, that might sound pretty convoluted and crazy, but hey, the comics did it. And honestly, I think this show does a better job of making all these different genres work together so that they feel like they can work in this large, thriving universe. Every story gets fleshed out. Nothing is a throwaway or filler episode, and even ones that feel like they are, get paid off in recurring arcs throughout the later seasons. Heck, I think there's only one recap clip show episode in this entire series, and that's pretty impressive since that's a standard for cartoons this long.
What you talking about, Willis?
World building is the most important thing about this show. Everything feels thought out in a way that makes sense for the plot. Actions have consequences, and it all ties into a bigger narrative. We learn how Splinter learned ninjutsu from his master Hamato Yoshi, who was killed by the Shredder in an effort to find his enemies Yoshi worked for, who were also the ones behind the Turtles' mutation. When the Turtles seemingly defeat the Shredder for a time, a vacuum of power is left in the city for the other gangs to have a turf war for control with the Foot. When New York is invaded by dino-looking aliens called the Triceratons, go with it, the fallout and destruction is felt deeply, with various organizations rising to salvage leftover weapons and plan for future attacks. Again, it's wild hearing it out loud, but I promise you, it all ties together so well. MCU who? The characters in the show are really well written and fun, to the point where, like a lot of animated comic book shows, these are the standards for them in my mind. They're all exactly who they need to be, and the voice cast does a great job with them. Master Splinter is a great dad in the show. He's got all the typical wise sage phrases you'd expect, but knows how to cut loose and kick ass.
In the words of the ancient master, it ain't over till it's over.
Plus, you can tell when he just gets fed up with his son's crap and decides to teach him a lesson.
We should do a road trip.
Excellent suggestion.
Really?
I think it would be good for all of us if you got out of the city for a bit.
I know most people prefer Splinter's backstory when he was actually a ninja master who became a rat man, but I like his comic-accurate origin of being just a pet rat who learned from his owner and raised the turtles just out of his compassion. It shows that family is something that doesn't have to be predestined or by blood, but it's something you build out of genuine kindness and love. The four turtles themselves have a lot of depth, more than their usual cliches. Leonardo as the leader of the team is very honorable and studious. He's treated like the golden child that the rest are jealous of because he's just so good at being a ninja. He's not so serious though that he's above cracking a joke or two.
Okay, it's not your regular mail. I guess Mikey would call it airmail.
He's a good person who really takes the time to help his brothers and keep the group together, but that also adds a lot of stress. When Leo fails and is beaten badly, he takes it very personally, especially when his brothers are hurt too. There's a couple arcs throughout the series where Leo becomes cold and distant because of these setbacks, and it hurts the whole team dynamic because of it. People like to criticize the series because of this, saying that it's the Leo show and focuses too much on him, but just because his arcs take more time doesn't mean he's more favored. It just shows that as a leader, you need to be a strong pillar others need to follow. So changing your ways and opening your mind is going to take some work. But Leo still rises above all that and becomes a stronger leader. This might be my favorite version of Michelangelo in anything. He's goofy and lighthearted, but is actually funny and kind of badass.
Hello? Room service?
We placed no order.
Well, somebody ordered a serious butt whooping.
Honestly, I'm surprised people talk about Leo getting too much attention when Mikey gets so much devoted to him. He can be the laziest out of the bunch and is often called out for it. He also gets abused by Raph for good measure. But when he focuses and actually puts in an effort, he's got the most raw talent out of all of them. He even wins a multiversal martial arts tournament against some of the strongest characters in the series. It was a technicality, but he still wins the rematch anyway. In both the Mirage series and the 03 show, Mikey's a huge comic book and superhero fan. I feel that. There's even an issue in the comics where Mikey writes himself as a lone wandering Ronin in a manga-like story.
Looks very, similar.
The show takes it to another level though, where he becomes a costumed hero himself called the Turtle Titan, who meets and teams up with other actual superheroes in the show, like this Superman-type character named the Silver Sentry, or this knockoff Batman voiced by Goku?
I'm the guy that cops would thank if they knew I existed, but they don't. Who am I? I'm nobody.
I love that he helps connect the turtles to this whole other complicated world of shenanigans. Every bit of screen time Mikey has is a great ride, and he's probably my favorite turtle in the whole show.
Cowabunga! Oh, not funny, Raph!
Oh, yes it is.
Raphael is the hothead of the team, and he's also the only truly certified New Yorker.
This is some nice steel. How about telling me who gave them to you?
Yo mama.
He starts out having a lot of the same cliche arcs you'd expect for a character with this stereotype, but gradually, he actually learns his lessons and goes from the angry one always getting into trouble to being the one who gives his bros a reality check. Him and Leo have a great back and forth where Raph doesn't always go along with his orders, leading to conflict between them, but also opportunities for him to help Leo get out of his funk. Raph is also the one who gets Casey Jones involved with the gang, another angry vigilante who Raph sees a kindred spirit in with both their short tempers. It's surprising to see Raph kinda become the most balanced out of all of them, since he doesn't get as sucked into his thoughts as the others do. He's sort of the most passionate out of the group, since when any one of them gets hurt, Raph goes on a one-turtle war to make sure there's justice. There's an episode where, while trying to search for a missing Master Splinter, Raph helps a boy trying to find his mother who's been kidnapped by a group of thugs. You really get to see his soft side as he helps this kid, and how heroic and honorable he can be too.
Winning without honor is not winning. Jeez, you sound like Leo.
Donatello, to be honest, gets the least amount of attention out of his brothers, but he still goes through a lot. Because he's the tech whiz of the bunch, he's always got to be on top of things, making gadgets like the Shell Cell communicators and the Battle Shell truck. He's the smart one. He's a key tool the guys need in their adventures. But what happens when you don't have him? In one of the darkest and most popular episodes in the whole show, during an arc where the Turtles get sent to different universes, Donnie is sent to a Days of Future Past type post-apocalyptic world, where the Shredder has taken over and his brothers are all split up. It's like the last Ronin before that was even a thing. Mikey's missing an arm, Raph's missing an eye, and is Leo blind? Jeez! Their Don disappeared, and because of that, their family and their whole world literally fell apart. And it's only him bringing them back together that allows them to stop this Shredder. There's another arc where Donnie accidentally gets mutated further into a mindless raging monster, and the other three Turtles have to work without him to find a cure. I like how this shows that the Turtles work best when they're all together and actually need each other. Donatello, being the chill, level-headed one, ensures that. Apart from the sad stuff though, he still has fun. Him and Mikey have a couple side quests, or just vibe while Leo and Raph go at it. He hangs out with Leatherhead, another mutant they meet who's also a scientist. And he gets some fun adventures of his own, like meeting Jack Kirby and seeing the New Gods, basically.
Kirby, my friend, you are the king.
There's also the Turtles' closest human allies, April O'Neil and Casey Jones. April is a former lab assistant to the evil scientist Baxter Stockman, who the Turtles save in their first adventure. Again, I like them using her comic book origin, instead of her just always being a reporter like she always is now. It allows her to actually help the team directly, alongside Donatello in the tech department. She basically becomes the adult bigger sister to the Turtles, joking around with them, giving them a home when they can't go to theirs, and acts as the voice of reason amongst all their antics.
Up high!
Pop the China! Whoops! Why should today be any different?
Kids.
03 Casey is the best Casey. Fight me. He's the himboest himbo to ever himbo, and I love him so much. Casey's got real beef with the Purple Dragons and their leader Hun, since they burned down his father's old store. Meeting Raph though and getting involved with the Turtles helps mellow him out. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he's got a heart of gold. And I find it awesome how him being just such a crazy guy that his sports equipment is enough for him to take on trained ninjas, aliens, and anything else the gang fights. It's cool to see how he just fades in with the Turtles and just acts like one of the guys. A background element of the show is Casey and April having a budding romance that's really subtle but also feels real. They go from hating each other's guts because they're polar opposites, but after saving each other's lives and both being with the Turtles, they warm up to each other and become a really great couple.
The only thing I love more than bashing some bad guy heads is you.
Oh, Casey, you big lug.
The villains in this show are also awesome. Like I said earlier, there's a lot to choose from, and I can't cover them all, but I'll try to focus on the best ones. Baxter Stockman is an evil genius who makes powerful robots used to take out any of his enemies. At first he's working for the Shredder, but after failing so many times to axe the Turtles and occasionally going behind his back, the Shredder gradually mutilates him till he's nothing but a brainstem. Wow. He escapes Shredder eventually and tries to get a new body, but that backfires too in some of the most gruesome body horror that I've ever seen in a kid's cartoon. Ugh. He's like the Starscream of the show, where he's constantly scheming and backstabbing, trying to get himself to the top of the food chain, but always ends up at the bottom. He's a great rival to the Turtles since he always manages to come back and give them a real challenge. Eventually he ends up working for a new antagonist created for the show, Agent Bishop. Bishop is the head of a secret government agency called the Earth Protection Force, who was there since it was founded after a UFO crashed in the 1800s. Bishop was a soldier who was captured and experimented on by aliens, giving him an intense hatred of them. He's been at the forefront whenever aliens come to Earth, and often attacks and experiments on the Turtles for his research in improving humanity to fight back. He's kinda like a mix of Vandal Savage from DC and Nick Fury from Marvel, in the sense that he's somehow lived for centuries and is willing to do whatever it takes to defend the Earth against alien invaders. Even doing really f***ed up things like mutating soldiers or even just killing millions of people.
My calculations suggest that it would be beneficial if 57% of the Earth's population simply disappeared.
But when desperate times call for desperate measures, the Turtles are very reluctantly willing to work with him against common foes. Then there's the cream of the crop, the ultimate villain of the 2003 series, Michael Bay, the Shredder. Epic theme song. This Shredder is such a force to be reckoned with. His voice alone, performed by Scotty Ray, is so intimidating, powerful, and booming. It's the perfect voice of a villain.
Like the phoenix, I have risen from the ashes. And into my fire, you shall fall.
The Shredder, or Orokusaki when he's unmasked, is the leader of the Foot Clan, an ancient order of ninja deeply loyal to him. He runs a front of being a benevolent Japanese businessman who gives his money to the city of New York. Behind the scenes though, he runs a criminal empire, with his goals being a mystery early on. The only thing we know is that he's looking for his enemies. Because of the history tied to him killing Splinter's master Yoshi, he comes into conflict with the Turtles often and beats them pretty badly when he first appears, cheating death and nearly blowing them all to Kingdom Come. It's cool to see whenever the Turtles have a rematch with Shredder, they treat it like a well-planned, well-equipped spy or heist mission, prepping for anything. Even then though, they often barely make it out alive, and it's always a really hard-fought battle. There's a big twist with this version of the Shredder, which I won't spoil, but you might have already heard about. And while I think it's a pretty big departure from both the comics and other versions, I don't think it diminishes his character, and if anything, raises the stakes every time the Turtles fight him. Now for the most part, I've been talking about the first 5 seasons of the 03 show's original run, but the last 2 seasons, titled Fast Forward and Back to the Sewers, are not as good. They're both the result of network mandates and interference. Fast Forward has a much flatter art style and is more lighthearted to compensate for how dark the show had gotten in parts. And Back to the Sewers has all the character designs changed to look more like the 2007 TMNT film, cause movie synergy. That's why the Turts got eyeballs with their masks. They're definitely the low points of the series, but they do have good elements that I think makes them worth watching. Fast Forward has the Turtles set 100 years in the future, living with Casey and April's descendant, Cody Jones. It's cool to see how the heroics of the Turtles in the past help usher in this amazing new world. We see how April and Casey founded a company Cody runs that creates beneficial technology. Mikey discovers there's a new Turtle Titan who protects the city and was inspired by him. Bishop becomes a good guy after an alien saves his life, and basically becomes the president of an intergalactic United Nations. Talk about a 180. Back to the Sewers doesn't really add much, just more of the Turtles turting. There's kind of this arc of them going to cyberspace and fighting a cyber copy of the Shredder. Yeah, not much is there, but we do get a fantastic season finale with almost every character in the show reuniting to see Casey and April finally getting married in one of the best cartoon weddings of all time. At least this wedding was real. There's also the Turtles Forever movie to act as a series finale, where the 03 Turtles get to meet both the 87 show Turtles and the Mirage Comics Turtles in a sort of TMNT No Way Home before No Way Home. And I kinda like it more. I know people have issues with how the 80s Turtles are portrayed too clownishly, and I agree, but there's a lot of cool moments and jabs thrown at all parties involved.
I strike 2 on my way down. Raph loves this stuff. He's not alone.
Why is he narrating? Is he crazy?
So I think it still holds up as an overall tribute to the TMNT brand, and it's a great way to end the 2003 show's story.
It's ninja time! Turtle power!
It's obvious at this point, but this series is one of my most favorite cartoon shows of all time. I put it up there with shows like Batman the Animated Series and Spectacular Spider-Man. The latter especially, since both of these shows use their original comics as a strong backbone of their stories, but they also create new ideas that become franchise staples while still using the source material as a guide.
Next time, let's leave the wall crawling to the dude in the blue and red tights.
You read way too many comic books.
Since the show ended up until very recently, it hasn't really received any attention by the brand. Maybe that's because of Nickelodeon getting the rights and focusing on their own stuff, but the 80s show and 90s movies get plugs and merch all the time, so what gives? Thankfully, some great stuff has happened within the last year. The 03 show was finally collected into one complete DVD collection, instead of being scattered for years, and is also streaming on Paramount+. Arr, no more low-quality uploads. The 03 Turtles also got a short story in the TMNT 40th anniversary comic this year, written by one of the show's lead producers, Lloyd Goldfine, and drawn by one of its character designers, Kari Randolph. And it's pretty cool! The company Super 7 announced they're releasing new action figures based on the Turtles from the show coming very soon, and they look awesome! Wait, it's over $200 for all 4 of them? Aw, well I got them all anyway, but still! I don't know if I really want a continuation or expansion to the show because they really kind of did everything. At most, maybe a new comic book sequel miniseries like what DC has done for some of their stuff, but even then, I'm not campaigning for it. I also just found out there was a tie-in comic for 03 back in the day written by Peter David of all people. That's crazy, I gotta check that out. 2003's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a fantastic series. The show was allowed to go anywhere it wanted and tell whatever stories it wanted to tell, making it really special. It also proves how great an adaptation can be when original creators are involved and their work is respected throughout. Hopefully the show gets more props. And here's to many more years of the Turtles to come.